For this mask, we're going to need 2 front pieces and 4 straps. It's not necessary for you to actually print out this many pattern pieces. You can print one of each and just cut them a few times. This is just a little bit easier for you to see exactly how much of each you'll need. You can cut these however you'd like. I have some already traced so you can see that we are going to be cutting two of the large face masks from the pink, and then I have 4 straps traced on the teal fabric. I'm going to be cutting 2 at a time here, so I have 2 traced, but cutting 2 at a time would give me 4. So I can quickly cut those out. You can see I have 2 straps each there. So I have 4 of my teal straps, and then I'm going to cut these 2 face masks. Double up your fabric and save yourself some time. And here you have all the pieces you'll need for this basic mask. 2 of the front pieces and the 4 straps. You're going to prep and iron all 4 of your straps the same way. We'll start by folding about 1/4 inch over to the wrong side at the short end to finish the short end of the strap. Then we'll make a few creases in this to use as a guide as we fold the strap so that no raw edges are visible. So the first one we'll do is we're going to fold the entire rectangle in half lengthwise, and that'll give us a crease right down the middle. You want to get this really nice and crisp. It will help make the rest of the pressing much easier. So once you have that fold down the middle, like I said, that crease is going to act as a guide for us. So we're going to fold this bottom edge up to that middle crease. So take your time. The more crisp you can make these folds, the easier it is at the end to fold your strap up complete. So now you can say I have the bottom edge folded up to the middle. I'll flip it around to make it a little bit easier. I'm going to do the same thing now to this long edge. Fold it up to the middle, so they should just now barely be touching right there at the center. And we'll go all the way across. And now I'll fold the entire piece in half again across the middle. And those folded edges should now line up right on top of each other. So now I have a strap that is finished at this short edge, finished at all of the long edges, and this raw edge is where we're going to attach it to the mask. So again, you're going to do the same thing to all 4 pieces of your strap. Okay, so I have some black thread in my sewing machine so it's easier for you to see. You can use whatever color you would like, but we're just going to top stitch along this long edge to seal the strap closed. So I'll drop it down here. Sometimes it's hard to get these little straps through your sewing machine. Be careful when you back tack at the start and the stop that things don't get too tangled up on you. That will certainly make it easier if it's not. And we're going to just keep that folded edge right on top of itself all the way down. When you get down here to the bottom, just make sure that that little bit you folded up at the beginning is still tucked under so that no raw edges are down here exposed at the bottom either. Do some back tacking down there at the bottom. You don't necessarily have to go across the bottom. That should be good enough to keep it sealed. And now we have a finished strap. So just like before when we pressed all 4 of them the same way, we're going to top stitch all 4 of them the same way too. To sew the dart, I have my seam allowance marked on the wrong side of my fabric. It's a 1/4 inch seam allowance though, so the more you practice with this, the less you have to mark it. You're going to fold your fabric right sides together and line up these raw edges. Put a pin in place here at the top to keep it steady. And we're just going to sew right along this seam allowance line. It's easier to start from the raw edge and work towards the center, the V point of the dart. So we'll drop our needle on right there. Do some back tacking at the start and then just follow along the line. We'll do the same thing for the dart at the bottom. It's folded right sides together. The raw edges of the dart are matched up. You can put a pin here at the top if you'd like to hold it in place while you settle it under your presser foot. And again, you're going to start at the raw edge and sew towards the V in the dart. Now from the outside, you have darts at the top and the bottom, and it curves to your face. You're going to do the same thing with your other front piece. It might be a little bit more comfortable for whoever is wearing your mask if the seam allowance of the darts is pressed to the side rather than coming right at their face. So you can just quickly take a second, doesn't matter which side, and you don't have to worry about opening it up. We're just going to quickly press the seam allowance to the side for both of our completed and sewn face mask front pieces. This way it should lay a little bit flatter on their face. We're going to pin our 4 straps to the right side of the mask. So I have the finished side facing up. I've marked the seam allowance in each corner to help me put my straps in place. The more you practice this, the less you probably have to do that. But we're going to take each strap, line the raw edge of the strap up with the raw edge of the side of our mask. We're going to drop it down 1/4 of an inch so it's not up inside the seam allowance of the mask. And we'll pin it in place. I do like to orient this way so that I can put my pin heads in with the head of the pin out away from the mask. This will help make the next step a little bit easier. So again, I take the raw edge of one end of my strap. I line it up with the raw edge of the mask, and in this case I have it scooted up about 1/4 of an inch from the bottom so it's not sewn into the seam allowance. And we'll do the same thing on this side. You flip it around. So I have the raw edge of one strap placed in the corner 1/4 of an inch from the top or bottom. You flip it this way, it might be a little bit easier for you to see. Just like that. And then the last strap. Here's the raw edge, and I'm pinning it in place. The raw edge is lined up with the side, and it's up about 1/4 of an inch from the bottom. And now all 4 straps are pinned in place to the right side of my mask. Okay, so I have my one mask with the 4 straps pinned to it. And now I'll take my second mask piece, right sides together, and pin it also right over top of the one below it. So we'll match up the corners and the darts first. And then depending on how comfortable you are at your sewing machine, you may need to add a few more pins in along these curves to keep them matched on top of each other as you sew. I'll go across the top. And again, I'm going to match this corner and then add a few more pins along the curve if I need it. And now you can see why it was easier for me to have those pin heads from the straps out to the side. I can easily now pin through all the layers, both masks and the strap holding it in place, and my pin heads aren't stuck underneath in between all of the layers. So I'll do the same thing to the other side, anchoring the 2 masks together and keeping the straps in place. And then I'll do the bottom. Now in this case, we want to make sure that these straps aren't going to get sewn in here. So really take a second to push them down into the middle of your mask so they're not going to get accidentally sewn over when you close up the 2 layers of the mask together. So I have a pin at my dart, and I'll add 1 or 2 here along this curve, and then finish up over here. Same thing. When I take this to my sewing machine, just because I feel like here it might be a little bit easier for you to see, we're going to start over on the side. We'll do some back tacking just under the strap. We'll sew with 1/4 of an inch seam allowance all the way around, again being sure we don't accidentally sew over any of the strap ends in the middle. When we get over to this side, we'll go just past the strap and back tack. That'll leave us a gap of maybe about 1.5 inches over here on the side, and that's what we'll use to turn this right side out after it's sewn. Okay, so just to review one more time, since we're here at the machine, we're going to start in the corner, back tack, go all the way around, being careful that we don't catch any of the strap ends along the way, and back tack when we get past this strap over here. This leaves this space from here to here open for turning. This is 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. So just be sure you're consistent all the way around. We'll back tack at the start. When we get to the corner, needle down, press our foot up, and turn. thing here. We're at the side here with the strap. I'm gonna get right to 1/4 inch. Needle down, press your foot up, and on this side, we can just sew all the way down. We're gonna go all the way across the bottom, being sure that none of our strap ends are getting stuck in any of our stitching along the way. And on this side, remember, we're going to leave this space open. So we'll go up a little bit just to anchor that strap in place and back tack. So now we have our mask sewn almost all the way around. You can see there's an opening here on this side, and we're going to flip it to the right side out, which takes a little bit of patience. The straps actually do make it a little bit easier if you can find a way to grab onto a strap from the other side. The whole thing kind of pulls through a lot faster. Here we go. So we'll flip this right side out, and we'll give it a really good press all around these edges. That way, so that it really keeps its shape well. There's the top, and then we'll do the same thing and press along the bottom curve. Our one side is completely closed here, so we can give that a good press. And on this side, we have our opening. So we'll press the seam allowance under and in about 1/4 inch, just like it would be if we had sewn it. And now we're going to take it to our sewing machine, and we're going to top stitch all the way around the entire shape of the mask. All right, so here I have the mask completely turned, and once again, I've really taken a couple minutes to press all of the fabric out so that those sewn edges are right up against the edge, especially around these curves, because you don't want this part that goes over the nose or under the chin to lose its shape if the whole thing isn't pressed and the seam isn't really close along the edge of that fabric. So this is my opening. I'm going to get probably like about 1/16 inch here away from the folded edge when I top stitch, and that will close that up. And then also the top stitching around the whole thing really helps to keep the mask in the shape that we want it to stay. So this is the only place where I might put a pin on, just to keep those folded edges right on top of each other. And I'll start here and go across. And then I'm just going to follow the pink all the way around, trying to stay, like I said, about 1/16 inch to 1/8 inch in from the edge all the way around. Try to keep this curve as smooth as I can. And then in these corners, if necessary, you can drop your presser foot or needle down, press your foot up to get around those corners a little bit better. Down here I can kind of feel that the seam isn't right there at the edge. So I'm going to really make sure that it stays in place as I sew around. When you get back to where you started, just put a little back tack in to lock both the start and stop in place, and clip your threads. Now, our mask is complete.